Hi there, this is Cindy, your host for the Kindness Advantage podcast, where in 10 minutes or less, I will share ways you can be intentional with kindness, not only in your personal life, but your professional life as well. I'm so happy to have you here once again this week. I am going to talk this week about navigating conflict with kindness. Now, we know that life is full of conflict. It is natural part of life, but how we handle it makes all the difference in the world. And it really doesn't need to be destructive. It could actually build and support relationships. So when you have the right approach, you can get through those tough arguments and disagreements with kindness, and maybe even have a stronger relationship at the end. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you learned something. And you know what? I hope that you pass this along to somebody that may need to hear it as well. So how can we approach conflict with a kinder mindset? Now, I know it gets easier the more that you are intentional with kindness. So, just like I just mentioned, having a kindness mindset makes a big difference too. Knowing that it's a core value of yours, it really does make a bigger difference. But if you're not there yet, I mean, I've been intentional with kindness for 9 years, and if you've listened to me before, I still suck at it sometimes, right? But I'm more aware. And so when you are in conflict, when there's a disagreement, having that kindness mindset really does make a difference. So first of all, active listening, right? When you practice active listening, you can really, well, one, you're listening and not responding, but you are trying to understand their perspective, right? The other person's perspective. Even if you disagree, even if you don't like what they're saying, you can put aside your own thoughts and feelings and truly try to understand that other person's perspective. Now, you're not interrupting and you're not jumping to conclusions. That is active listening. It's really, really tough, especially when emotions are high and, you feel like you're right all the time, right? But when we listen with empathy, we actually open ourselves up to understanding and finding a common ground, which is really important when you are trying to navigate conflict, right? So when we show or when we have active listening, we actually show respect and we create a space for open communication. And honestly, empathy is the key. Now, trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand their feelings, I think, is truly important. This doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. Don't get me wrong with that. You don't have to agree, but it actually shows respect and can help diffuse any tension that might be there. Empathy goes a long way in building understanding and fostering collaboration. Now, we can utilize active listening in the workplace. We can utilize active listening at home with our important relationships. And it does take some practice, but I guarantee you will see results when you are consistent at it. So another helpful strategy, I think, that comes along with navigating conflict with kindness is using I statements. So when you're trying to express your feelings, you really want to avoid blaming and accusing the other person. So instead of saying, "You're always so difficult to work for or with," say, "I feel frustrated when our communication breaks down." So those I statements can really help focus on your own feelings and avoid making the other person feel defensive. It's really hard, But if you can master that, you will see a difference in how you navigate conflict. It's also important to avoid making assumptions about the other person's intentions, right? One way you can do this is asking clarifying questions to ensure that you have a clear understanding of their perspective. Honestly, I think in a lot of conflict, misunderstandings can actually escalate the situation. And if we don't take time to truly understand each other, there's, it's really challenging to find a solution. So I also believe that when you focus on the issue and not the person, makes a big difference. And this is hard too, to separate the issue from the person, but it's helpful. Avoiding personal attacks and try to stick with the facts, right? Personal attacks only escalate the problem and the conflict. We know this, but when you get heated, it's really challenging sometimes not to be defensive and not to throw things back into somebody else's face, especially if that's how they are responding to the conflict. Kindness, having a mindset of kindness, taking that time, breathing, knowing most likely it's not personal, really is key. And finally, I really think when we're in conflict, if you can try to find a common ground, if you can try to compromise, finding a solution that works for both parties, it does require flexibility and a willingness to give and take. But I think when you have that compromise, it shows a commitment to finding a resolution. It's a win-win solution. It honestly, I think, is the best outcome for any conflict, right? When both people are feeling heard and both people can come up with a compromise to move forward. I want you to know that kindness does not mean you're a doormat. I always talk about this. It's not about being soft or weak or someone you're not. It's this idea that we're all human beings, right? In conflict, it's important that you stand up for yourself while maintaining respect for others. And truly, kindness and assertiveness can go hand in hand when it's played out right. Keeping the ego aside. But I really do believe if you take the sum of everything that I talked about today, active listening, empathy, focusing on the issue, you can actually navigate conflict with kindness and build stronger relationships. So, to wrap things up, even during conflict, kindness can make a difference. Take a deep breath. Practice active listening. Try to see things from the other person's perspective and point of view. And remember that kindness isn't being a pushover. It's about asserting yourself with respect and empathy and approaching conflicts with kind and understanding mindset. You can create a more positive and productive environment for everyone. It does take a lot of strength and courage, but kindness isn't for the weak. I hope that this resonated with you. I hope that maybe in your next disagreement or conflict, you can remember this episode and utilize some of the tips that I provided here for you. And know that, we are not perfect. We are human beings. We do make mistakes. But the more you focus on kindness, it truly does make a big impact, not only on your life, but the lives around you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not following, please do so. Share this episode and leave me a comment. Let me know what resonated with you. I read them and I love them. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember, together, we create waves of change through kindness.